Tensions between Russia and Ukraine take a new turn every day, from threats and trading barbs to a full-scale military operation. Now, some say the two sides are in it for a long dispute. It might seem that it's all about Kiev and Moscow, but the real reason behind this military operation lies somewhere else: NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, a military alliance that claims to be in favor of peace, but has pushed two countries into war. And the truth is that it's not the first time that NATO has caused destabilization and conflict. In fact, investigate any conflict over the past couple of decades, and you will see a trace of NATO in it. Hi, and welcome to our program. This is NATO in a nutshell. NATO is an intergovernmental military alliance between 30 nations, 28 European countries and 2 North American countries. It was formed after the Second World War under the pretext of preventing any other conflict. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization is a military alliance formed in 1949 by 12 countries, including the US, Canada, the UK, and France. Based on this alliance, members agreed to come to one another's aid in the event of an armed attack against any member state. NATO's original aim was to counter the threat of post-war Russian expansion in Europe. In 1955, Soviet Russia responded to NATO by creating its own military alliance of Eastern European communist countries called the Warsaw Pact. Following the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, a number of former Warsaw Pact countries switched sides and became NATO members. In the eyes of many experts, it was an ill-considered decision by the US to expand NATO following the collapse of the Soviet Union. While no war or arms race was threatening the West, they continued to build up their military. The North Atlantic Treaty claims to be a purely defensive alliance, but it's been involved in numerous conflicts since it was created. No military operations were conducted by NATO during the Cold War, but after that, NATO carried out its first operations in 1990, following Iraq's invasion of Kuwait. The Bosnian War began in 1992, and NATO started its incursion in the war-ravaged region in 1993. NATO's intervention began as largely political and symbolic, but gradually expanded to include large-scale air operations and the deployment of approximately 16,000 soldiers. In 1999, NATO carried out another intervention operation by bombing the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia during the Kosovo War. The airstrikes lasted from 24th of March 1999 to 10th of June 1999. The U.S. invasion of Afghanistan was NATO's longest military involvement so far, as a result of which hundreds of thousands lost their lives. The alliance stayed in Afghanistan for 2 decades, aiding the U.S., which is the biggest spender in the NATO, fighting America's unwinnable war. NATO was also involved in the U.S. invasion of Iraq, war on Syria, and intervention in Libya. Critics of the alliance believe the alliance is just an extra muscle, helping the U.S. military agenda whenever Washington needs to send troops to start a war. This has even prompted some European members to pursue a military strategy of independence from NATO, where they won't be under U.S. influence. While many Europeans believe NATO is irrelevant to Europe, there are millions in North America who feel the same. Except they think that the alliance is useless for North America. It has just become a tool for American-led military interventions. Now, with the conflict raging on in Ukraine, these criticisms have been put on the table once again. That what fueled the flames of tensions in the first place was NATO's expansion and its accession to Eastern European nations, some of them bordering Russia. Russian President Vladimir Putin has repeatedly demanded that NATO promise to never admit Ukraine into its military alliance. Putin believes NATO's expansion destabilizes the region. While Russia is to blame for starting a military operation, NATO's arrogant, tone-deaf policy toward Moscow over the past quarter-century deserves a large share as well. Analysts committed to a U.S. foreign policy of realism and restraint have warned for more than a quarter-century that continuing to expand the military alliance toward another major power would not end well. The conflict in Ukraine provides definitive confirmation that it did not. History will show that Washington's treatment of Russia in the decades following the demise of the Soviet Union was a policy blunder of epic proportions. It was entirely predictable that NATO's expansion would ultimately lead to a tragic, perhaps violent breach of relations with Moscow. Perceptive analysts warned of the likely consequences, but those warnings went unheeded. And now Ukrainians are paying the price for the U.S. foreign policy myopia and arrogance. And that does it for this episode of our program. Thanks for watching NATO in a nutshell. We'll see you next time.